The line stretched down the block, winding past the corner of a busy New York street where the scent of roasted coffee beans mixed with the smoky aroma of sizzling tacos. At the heart of it all stood Emma, a young woman in a faded apron, her hair pulled into a messy bun as she worked tirelessly inside her little food truck. Her days began before sunrise and ended long after the stars filled the sky, yet she never complained. Each customer who approached her window was greeted with the same bright smile, though behind it lay a story of struggle and resilience. The food truck wasn't just a job, it was her lifeline, her only means of paying rent, keeping the lights on, and ensuring her younger brother had everything he needed for school. Emma had learned to survive in a city that rarely slowed down for anyone, and her heart was tougher than the pavement beneath her feet. But this morning felt different. She noticed a man in line, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit that seemed out of place among her usual customers. He stood tall, quietly scrolling through his phone, drawing occasional glances from others in line. Emma didn't give him a second thought. To her, he was just another customer among many, another coffee, another sandwich, another face she'd likely forget. What she didn't realize was that this stranger, patiently waiting in line, wasn't just another customer. He carried a past that connected to hers in ways she had long forgotten, and he was about to remind her of it in a way that would change her life forever. As the line moved forward, Emma kept her rhythm, taking orders, handing out change, balancing trays, and exchanging quick smiles with strangers. She was efficient, practiced, and never once broke her flow. The man in the suit finally stepped up to the counter, sliding his phone into his pocket as his eyes met hers. For a split second, Emma felt a flicker of recognition, but she quickly brushed it aside. "What can I get you today?" she asked, her tone polite but detached, the same tone she used for everyone. He studied her face longer than most customers ever did, almost as if searching for something he had lost. "One black coffee," he finally replied, his voice calm, almost melodic. Emma nodded and spun around to prepare the order. To her, he was simply another professional rushing off to a meeting. She didn't notice the way his gaze lingered on the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, or the quiet sadness in his eyes as if he was remembering something long buried. When she handed him the cup, their fingers brushed, and for a moment Emma's chest tightened with an unfamiliar warmth. He smiled faintly, leaned in just enough so only she could hear, and whispered, "Still remember me?" Her heart skipped. The words echoed in her mind, carrying a weight she couldn't immediately place. She froze, her usual rhythm broken, her breath caught halfway between confusion and disbelief. The man's smile didn't waver, but his eyes revealed something deeper, an old connection she couldn't yet name. Before she could ask, he stepped aside to let the next customer order, leaving Emma with a racing heart and a question she didn't know how to answer. Emma's hands trembled as she worked through the next few customers, her mind replaying his whisper again and again, "Still remember me?" She struggled to place his face, his voice, or the memory he was hinting at. New York was filled with fleeting encounters, and she had long ago stopped trying to hold on to every face that passed her by. Yet something about him gnawed at her, tugging at a memory buried deep beneath years of hardship. When the last customer in line walked away, Emma finally allowed herself a moment to glance at where he stood nearby, sipping his coffee as if he had all the time in the world. Their eyes met once more, and this time, something clicked. A flash from her childhood, an image of a little boy in worn-out sneakers, sitting with her on the steps of a community center where free meals were given out to struggling families. They had shared sandwiches, stories, and dreams under the same broken street lamp that flickered each night. His name, what was his name? She had forgotten, but the memory of his laughter, the way he had promised to make it big one day, resurfaced with startling clarity. Could it really be him? The boy who once shared his last cookie with her when she had nothing? Emma felt her chest tighten with both shock and disbelief. How could that boy now be standing here, dressed in wealth and success, looking at her as though she had been the one he never forgot? She wanted to ask, but her pride and years of guardedness held her tongue. Instead, she wiped her hands on her apron and whispered under her breath, "It can't be." The man seemed to sense her hesitation. He He walked closer, standing just outside her food truck window, his presence calm yet commanding. "It's me, Daniel," he said softly, his voice carrying the same warmth she remembered from those nights long ago. "We used to wait in line together at the shelter. You always gave me half your bread, even when you were hungry yourself." Emma's breath caught in her throat. Daniel. The name unlocked a flood of memories she had tucked away to survive. She remembered his smile in the darkness, the way he had once promised to look out for her when the world felt too heavy. Back then, they were just two kids trying to find light in the shadows of poverty. Now, he stood before her as a man transformed, successful, and unrecognizable, except for the kindness in his eyes, which had never changed. Emma blinked rapidly, trying to compose herself. "That was a long time ago," she murmured, her voice trembling. Daniel smiled gently, as if time had done nothing to erase the bond they once shared. "Maybe. But I never forgot." His words pierced through her armor, breaking past the walls she had built from years of disappointment and struggle. Around them, the city buzzed with its usual chaos, honking taxis, chattering pedestrians, the hiss of another bus pulling up, but for a moment, it all faded. It was just Emma and Daniel, standing on opposite sides of a counter, reunited by fate in the most unexpected way. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, where he had been, how he had risen so high, why he was here, but all she could do was stare, her heart too full to speak. Daniel didn't push her for words. Instead, he leaned on the counter and watched her quietly, giving her space to process. Finally, he spoke again, his tone steady but filled with emotion. "I come here often, Emma. I've been watching from a distance, waiting for the right moment. I didn't want to overwhelm you, but today, I couldn't stay silent." Emma felt her throat tighten, overwhelmed by the realization that while she had been fighting day after day just to survive, someone had been quietly watching, remembering, and caring. She shook her head, blinking back tears. You've changed so much. Look at you, in that suit, you must have everything now. Why would you bother remembering me?" Daniel's smile softened. "Because you're the reason I believed I could make it. Back then, when we had nothing, you gave me kindness without expecting anything in return. You believed in me when no one else did. That's something a person never forgets." Emma's heart swelled with a mix of disbelief and humility. All those nights she had shared scraps of food and laughter, she had never imagined they would leave such a mark on someone else's life. Daniel reached into his pocket and placed a sleek black card on the counter. "I'm not here to impress you," he said. "I'm here because I want to help. You shouldn't be carrying all this weight alone. Let me invest in your dream. You kept me alive once, now it's my turn to give back." Emma stared at the card, her hands trembling, torn between pride and gratitude, knowing this was the moment that could change everything. Emma stared at the card for what felt like forever, her chest rising and falling as a storm of emotions swirled inside her. She thought of the nights she had gone without sleep, the mornings she had fought back tears, the countless times she had nearly given up but pushed forward anyway. And now, standing before her, was proof that kindness never truly disappears, it echoes back when least expected. Slowly, she lifted her eyes to Daniel's, searching for any trace of pity, but all she found was respect and gratitude. "I don't want charity," she whispered, her voice breaking. Daniel shook his head firmly. "This isn't charity. This is partnership. You gave when you had nothing, Emma. Let me give now, not because you need saving, but because you deserve someone to believe in you, the way you once believed in me." For the first time in years, Emma felt her walls begin to crumble. She pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed by the weight of hope returning to her life. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but this time they weren't from exhaustion or fear, they were from relief. Slowly, she reached across the counter, her fingers brushing his. "All right," she whispered, her lips trembling into a smile. "Let's do this, together." Daniel's smile widened, his eyes shining with the same boyhood promise he had once made. In that moment, surrounded by the noise of the city, a new chapter began, one built not on wealth or status, but on compassion, resilience, and a bond that had stood the test of time. And as Emma returned to her work, her heart carried a truth she would never forget: even the smallest acts of kindness can ripple forward, shaping destinies in ways unimaginable.